Shalom, everybody. We're going to read through Parashat Mattot. If anyone wants to raise your hand or annotate on the screen, here's how you do it. Can I get a volunteer to get us started reading? Sorry. I see some hands are up. Wonderful. Nadiva, do you want to get us started? Microphone.
Cheryl?
Yofi.
Cheryl was first.
Oh, Cheryl. Cheryl, please go ahead.
Cheryl.
Turn your mic on. Go ahead, Cheryl. Turn your mic on.
משה אל ראשי המטות לבני ישראל, זה הדבר אשר ציווה אדוני.
Mitsuyan. Very good reading. I have to hook up my pen. Sorry about that. Here we go. Vaidaber Moshe el rashi hamatot livnei Yisrael lemor ze hadavar asher tziva Adonai. Let's get the pen turned on here. Hide, turn on. There we go. Get my mark on the screen. Yay! It works. All right, what do we have here? What's easy? What's the name of this parasha named after?
Mishpat.
Is it Shemot?
Mishpat.
It's
Mattot.
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 Remember that every parasha, there are 54 parashot, there are 54 portions that the Torah is broken down into from Genesis to Deuteronomy, and each one is named according to the first significant word of the section. So Vaidaber, it's a normal word. Moshe, we love him, but he's he shows up a lot. El Rashi Matot. So the name of the section is Matot. Livnei Yisrael, what is le?
Of.
Remember, it shows either direction or intention. So to, for, in order to, belonging to. I don't like to use the word of, even though, obviously you can see of is being used here. I don't like to use of because of sounds an awful lot like a construct chain when you have two nouns butted next to each other, this of this. So if I can, I try to use something else like belonging to rather than of. A son of Jesse or a son belonging to Jesse. That way it helps disambiguate what we're talking about. Where's the definite article in this verse? Two of them.
Hadavar.
Okay, hadavar. What does definite article mean?
It's what the verb is done to.
Definite article is what?
Yeah. Sorry.
I think the definite article is the word the.
Right. It makes it definite instead of indefinite. So it's not a pencil, It's the pencil. It's not a word, it's the word. There's one more.
Mattot.
Yeah, that's tacked on to the word after which our parsha is named. So we've got the translated for ha in front of a noun or adjective. Okay, what is the how do I say this? Most Hebrew words have how many letters in their root? Three. It's called the shoresh. Very good. So what is the root of Vaidaber? Way too easy. Way too easy. What's the root of Moshe? See, all of a sudden, you all don't sound quite so certain of yourselves. What's going on here? All right, so we have the mem, we have the sheen. Yod.
Can it come from the word?
The third root letter was an original yod, and we lost it. There are these letters that sometimes go missing from the word, and those are called weak letters. Yod is a weak letter. Vav is a weak letter, and Nun is a weak letter. There are also a couple others that show up here or there occasionally, but these are your three main weak letters. So whenever you only have two root letters visible, it's probably because the third one is one of these. Mem
Moshe
Shin
comes
Yod.
from?
Mem Shin
What-
Yod, which means to draw out.
Yes.
That's why Pharaoh's daughter said, Mishitihu, Mashitihu, I have drawn him out of the water.
So how
And
do you know that the hay is not part of the root?
fantastic point. The hay without a vowel under it is representing a vowel, and vowels are not root letters. So because of the segol hey here, this mater lectionis, it's a vowel. It's not a root. It's not a consonant. If you see a dot, a mapik in the hay, now it is a consonant, like an H or H sound, then it's a consonant. But remember that hey, ever since the time of Solomon, came to represent a, and o final vowels. And then later on, it kind of lost the o value and vav took over for that one. But the point is, a and e vowels are represented by a final hey. Here's another one right there. All right. Similarly, what's the root of this word? Tziva. Everyone knows what a mitzvah is. A mitzvah is a command or a commandment. Here's the root. Here's the verbal root, which means he commanded. Tziva. You can hear the similarity between mitzvah and tziva. What's the root?
Gamal, Gamal, Vav,
Salad,
Nun.
Sadi, Vav, and I think it's Yod.
Ding, 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 ding. That's it. So the tzadi is visible. The vav is not a vowel vav. Even though it has a dot in the middle, it is not a shuruk. How do I know that? Well, because it has a vowel attached to it. It can't be a vowel if it has a vowel. So it's a consonantal vav with a strong dagesh that has a vowel underneath it. You see how up here we had vaida bear with a strong dagesh? That's because that's the part of the pattern of the verb. These kinds of verbs called PL have a dagesh. Is this a strong dagesh in the second root letter, which is telling us this is also
Yes.
a PL verb? Yeah, absolutely. But whereas we can see the resh, the third and final root letter of vaidaber, here all we have is a vowel hey. So the first thing we think is pesky Yod decided not to show up to the party. Instead, he sent hay to come fill the void. Last question. Is this a mater lectionis?
We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know because we don't know how to pronounce it. And beyond that, remember that the Masoretic scribes gave us vowels to remind us to pronounce it somehow else. So by circling this hey with the kamatz right here, I'm actually circling two pieces of two different words. There's a hey that belongs to Yod Hey Vav Hey, and there's a kamatz that to the word Adonai. So they don't even belong together because these are not the original vowels of God's name.
Oh.
How do I know that? Because if you look at all the different ways that vowels are put on God's name throughout the Bible, there are about 6 different ways. They're not consistent. But to answer the question, yes, this is a mater lectionis. The root was originally hey, vav, yod. And that yod in front means he will or he is. All right, who's the next reader? Let's see. Nadiva, I think you were. Go ahead. Nadiva, go ahead.
Oh, okay, that's sorry. I apologize up front. I get nervous. I said I did really well in my room by myself and reading to not at night, no. Okay, here we go. Ish ki דור,
Mhm.
נדר, ל, לאדוני, אור, איש, שבה, שבועה, לסור,
Mhm.
איסור, סוסר, על נפשו, לא, יהל, דוברו, ככל, היי זה מפי,
Mipiv. Mhm.
מפי, sorry, מפי, יעל, סל,
Yaase. Very good.
יעשה, sorry guys. Thank
Very
you.
good. No, we should be thanking you. Thank you for reading. Ish ki yidor neder ladonai o hishav shvu'a lesor isar al nafsho lo yachel dvaro kechol hayotze mipiv yaase. Now, when I finish reading through one of these verses, you all are like, wait a second, I don't understand why this is pronounced this certain way. Go ahead and interrupt me at that time. Say, hang on, I have a question about pronunciation. Otherwise, I'm going to move straight into, all right, what did we just read? What does it mean? Can I find some interesting things to talk about? All right.
No, I mean, it made perfect sense to me when you read it. And
What's the root of neder?
Yod, Resh, Rod, Dalet, Resh,
Nun dalet resh. What's the root of yidor?
Nun, Dalet, Resh.
Very good. It's the same one. Remember how we said yod, vav, and nun are weak letters. So the thing about nun is that if it ends up at the end of a syllable, except for like the last letter of the word, but end of the syllable, that's typically when nun disappears. So we would have expected something like yin, dor, like this, if it were a nice strong verb and everybody showed up to the party. But here we are with nun at the end of a syllable. What happened to it? Evidently, it's so weak it can't stand on its own. It assimilates, it turns into the following letter, which then creates a strong dagesh. This is the same thing that we see in English, right? It's very illogical. See the two L's? Means we have a missing letter. It's the same thing that's happening here. Yidor tells us there's a missing letter. It's neder. So if he will vow a vow, and then here I heard la Adonai. What should it be?
Ladonai.
La Adonai, exactly. So just like Aleph at the end of a syllable will quiesce, like we saw earlier with le, what was it, le more? I believe it was le. Yeah, like this Aleph right here. Do you see a vowel attached to the Aleph? Nope. That's because Aleph at the end of a syllable quiesces, goes quiet, which means it gets no vowel attached to it, and you just kind of skip over it because you can't make an sound at the end of a syllable. So here, if we're going to substitute instead of Yod He Vav He, if we're going to substitute Adonai, which is what the scribes and rabbis tell us we're supposed to do, then that means you're going to have La Donai.
you can't do that. No.
So
Adonai.
here we get a
Adonai.
shva when we should get something else. So either it's going to be la'a, or it's just going to quiesce all together and you get la donai. It's the second one. Now, having said that we will not have shvas on alephs, what is this? Look, it's not impossible to have a shva on alephs or on gutturals. It's just very, very rare. This is quite a unicorn. Very rarely will you see a shva on an aleph. Alas, here it is. What are we going to do about it? Read it. Le sor. Le sor. Okay. Shava. Ooh, why is there a strong dagesh here in this word? What went missing? Hishava.
Noon.
Ayod.
Some prefix missing.
All right, so it's an let's see, Hishav Shavua. Okay, so what we have here missing is the noon of Nifal. It should have been something like Hin Shava or Hin Shava, but we moved the stress over here for one reason or another, and that's okay. But yeah, it's the noon of the pattern of the verb called nifal. What is a shavua? Did anybody notice I misread it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a shavua. What is a shavua? After Shabbat, say shavua tov.
Week.
Right, so that's
Have a good
shav.
week.
Yes, very good. So shavua, like this. Shavua. This is a week, and you can see that it's related to shin bet ayin. Well, what's the root of this word? Shvu'ah. The same thing. So what do oaths have to do with 7? We understand Shavua is 7 days, so hence the Sheva is built in. What do oaths and swearing and all that have to do with 7? Nothing.
Or it's a perfect number.
There you go. So it has to do with completion. So the root shin bet ayin has to do with completion. 7 is the number of completion. Oath and swearing is something that you are promising to complete. It all has to do with completion. So they are related, just not in the way you think. Wait a second. Isor, no, Isav. Why is Isor, Isav? I want to know why there's a dagesh in this word. Does anyone know? Okay. It might just be the pattern of the word. That's always a possibility, right? Just as there's a pattern of putting a dagesh in daber or tziva, so also you can get that in nouns as well. How do we know this is kamatz katan?
It's short.
First off, it is an extremely common word. It's the most common word in the Bible that has a kamatz katan, so we should just know it from memory. However, with this if right here, it turns these 2 words into one word, which means that if the stress is over here, we now have a closed and unstressed syllable. That makes kamatz katan, which is a short O sound. Kechol hayotze. Kechol hayotze mipiv ya'aseh. What's the root of ya'aseh?
Aleph, Shin, Yod.
Ayin sin yod.
Sin, sorry.
Yep, and there's that vowel at the end that's trying to trick us, that stood in for the missing yod. Who's our next reader? Christine, was it you?
Sure.
All right.
Well, I just want to say that, I take level E with you. And I was, up until the age of 57, just a regular housewife. And now I'm a housewife biblical scholar. So if I can do that, he can do anything.
Kol hakavod. Well, I'm sorry it's such a short verse for such a biblical scholar as yourself.
Shouldn't have set myself up like that.
Nice.
All right, all yours. Go ahead.
Veisha ki ti dor neder ladonai ve'asra is Isa, what is it? Isaac.
Yep.
Bevet, Avia, Bin Urea.
Mhm. Ve'isha ki tidor neder ladonai ve'asra isar bevet aviha bin ureha. All right, so we've already talked about neder, and we talked about yidol. Is this the same verb, just now feminine? It has a tav in the front instead of a yod. Yidol means he will vow. What is tidor? She.
Yeah.
She will vow. So these prefixes tell us who the built-in subject is. Isha is feminine, singular. So the tav also represents feminine singular. She vows a vow unto the Lord. The asara. All right. What form? Remember, there are in beginning Hebrew there are 4 forms of verbs. What form is this one?
Yiktol.
Yeah, if it has prefixes, it's called a yiktol. That's the word that we use to describe imperfect, incompleted, future tense even. It's easier just to use the Hebrew word. We're going to call it yiktol. What form is this one?
It's Wayekto.
I hear you saying vayiktol,
Yes.
Vaketal.
but a vayiktol should have a vav, a patach, and a doubling dagesh.
All right. Oh, but you've got an aleph there.
I think I think the vav is conjunction,
Okay.
and the asra is pa'al, katal,
That's
Mhm.
woman.
Right.
Yeah.
feminine.
All right. So there are 4 different forms. The one that we usually learn first is called katal, and that's our completed or past tense. Yiktol is the incompleted future. Vayiktol flips it. This is what's called the narrative past. And then he did this, and then he did that. And then the last option is called vekatal. Now, you can see katal and vekatal are related because one is katal, one is the other, just with a v in the front. And you can see these two are related. Those are the same except for a vav at the front and a patach in the dagesh. Okay. You add a vav, it flips the tense. Yiktol is future. Vayiktol is narrative past. Katal is past. Vekatal is future.
It's future, but it can be other things too.
Excellent. So I am oversimplifying things at this point, but you're absolutely right. It's an incompleted action of some kind. All right. So we have 2 options, and you've stated your opinion. We have either vekatal for this ve'asra, or we have katal with just a regular old and in front of it.
It could be a vekatal.
It could be a vekatal. So we have to figure out from the context which one it is. So everyone study very carefully. Does it seem like this is a completed or incompleted action based on the context?
It's incomplete because there's an if.
Yeah.
Very good. The if, the key is, if you want to use the Latin, it's called casuistic. It's case by case basis. Whenever this happens, then you shall do such and such and such. Okay. If a woman should vow a vow unto the Lord, and she bind herself with a bond, bevet aviha, in the house of her father, bin ureha, in her youth. Okay, all of this is just a big giant if clause. The then clause is coming later. So because it's all not hypothetical, what's the word I'm looking for? If it's all subjunctive, is that the word?
Yes.
Conditional.
That means it's not, that means it's not completed. So that means we're looking at a vekatal right here. And we know that because the verb over here is what sets the stage for how to translate this vekatal. This is an incompleted, therefore this is an incompleted. Isol bevit. What is the absolute form of this word?
Of.
Abaim.
In Hebrew, it's av.
Abaim.
In Hebrew, it's just going to be av. And if we wanted to, we could also go with the Aramaic form abba,
Abba.
but that's Aramaic, so that's it's adopted from Aramaic into Hebrew because in Aramaic, at the end is your definite article. So abba would be like the father, but in Hebrew it turns into daddy. It's cute. This is what children say to their fathers. Abba, daddy. All right. If this is your absolute form, what is the triconsonantal root of this word?
Oh. Av.
I'm not the best at math, but I'm counting 2 roots here. Should be 3.
There are some just 2 rooted words, aren't there?
That becomes a philosophical question. Are there some words that appear to have only 2 root letters? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Are there Hebrew words that have only 2 root letters? That's where it gets dicey. Remember our friends Yod, Vav, and Nun? If one of them went missing and all you see are 2, you might be tempted to say, this one only has 2 root letters. But what if it had one of those and then it went missing?
Does it have another bet like Abba?
No, you're looking at it in this construct
Okay.
form here.
Like,
See,
Mhm.
the construct
Isn't-
form typically
right.
will preserve the original form of the word better than the absolute form will. Of, only 2 root letters, but as soon as you add a pronominal suffix to it, all of a sudden you have 3 root letters. You know why? Because that yod either was the 3rd root letter or is reminiscent of what was the 3rd root letter. Do you know how to say father in Arabic?
Abu.
Somebody here
Instead of
speaks
Av.
Arabic. So in Arabic, it would have been something like Abu, if I'm not mistaken, and that U is reminiscent of maybe a Vav.
Mm.
Now we get over into another dicey area where Hebrew seems to swap a lot of Vavs for Yods. So this Yod appears to be a reminiscent of its original Vav. So is Av a 2 consonant root, or did we lose the 3rd one? I think we lost the 3rd one. There are lots of roots like this. How about What is an
people.
A people. What's the root?
People.
Me.
If you look at the word with a pronominal suffix, let's say instead of people, let's say his people, it shows up like this.
Oh,
So now we've got a dagesh. So we have to ask ourselves, why? We've already talked about our friends Yod, Vav, and Nun. Anytime you see a dagesh, chances are it's a missing Nun, but not always. There are some roots that are geminate, which means the 2nd and 3rd root letters are the same. That's what we're looking at here. So the root here is ein, mem, mem. Bin oreha. That's too hard of a question. Let's keep reading. Okay, comments, questions so far? All right, this doozy is going to be for Jesse.
Okay. Ve'shema aviha et nidra ve'esara asher asra al nafsha vehecheri la aviha ve'kamu kol nedarha vekol isar asher asra al nafsha yakum.
Did you misread this?
All
Okay, good. Veshama aviha et nidrah ve'esarah asher asra al nafshah vehecherish lach aviha vekamu kol nedareha vechol isar asher asra al nafshah yakum. It is not customary to pronounce these letters anymore in modern Hebrew, but they are original. So if it's good for your own edification, I highly recommend even exaggerating that H sound at the end. I don't know about you guys, but you know how English has some wackadoodle spellings in it. I don't know how old you all were when you figured out that beautiful is beautiful. So for the longest time, you know, I'd say like beautiful or something like that, just as a to help me remember how to spell it. And then when Jim Carrey came out with his movie where he's like beautiful, I'm like, oh, it's perfect. I love it. So it is okay to come up with little either mnemonics or tricks to help you remember these things. Overemphasize a hey with a mapik in it so that it teaches you, wait a second, this is a consonantal hey, something else is going on here. It's not just a stand-in mater lectionis vowel letter. Okay, veshama is, what form is veshama? What form is veshama?
Vakatal.
It's still vekatal. Remember, we still have the if this and this and this and this, then right, we're still in the if clause. We have the subject here, and her father would hear her, or shall hear her, or does hear her, or hear, excuse me, et nidrah, her neder. Wait a second. I thought the word was neder. Now it's showing up as nidr. That's because it's more original. Same thing as melech turning into malko. Malk is more original than melech. So also nidr is more original than neder. Ve'esara asher asra al nafsha. Okay. This is getting a little bit well, yeah, it's a little more challenging. What's the root of this word?
Charish.
Chet, resh, shin. Good. What pattern, what binyan, what verbal form does it have?
Ufo?
If it were hufal, there should be an oo.
Ooh, I know.
Good. It is. It's hifil. Now, obviously, it doesn't sound like an e sound right there. It's more like an eh sound. What happened? Why isn't it rish?
Because of the hay that comes after it. The he that comes after it.
Right. So gutturals are always messing up vowels. This is a principle that you can keep in the forefront of your mind as you're reading Hebrew. Gutturals mess up vowels. What are the guttural letters?
Hey, het, aleph, ayin, and resh sometimes.
And sometimes resh. Exactly. Now, originally, resh actually had more like a rolling D sound. And then later on, it has more like a, towards the back of the throat sound. So that's why resh is a sometimes letter. It depends on where it got stuck as Hebrew developed. But all these other ones are, as I say that, I want to correct myself already. Okay. All these others are pronounced in the back of the throat, and that's what causes problems. If chirik is at the front of the mouth and the gutturals are in the back of the mouth, it's like you're running from your front door to the back door to try to get things done. It just doesn't work. So these gutturals will typically pull the vowels, the vowels closer to the back of the throat. So instead of he, see, even trying to fake it, I messed it up because he wants to pull it towards the back. So it turns it into heche, instead of he. Wow, that's hard. Gutturals mess up vowels. Hecherish. And there's the vav at the front, so it's another vekatal. La aviha vekamu. What's the root of vekamu?
Kum.
Yeah.
Good. That's it. Kum.
Boom.
Uh-oh. There's our friend Vav not showing up to the party. What happened? Well, is this a katal form? Is it a completed tense form? Vekamu. Okay, very good. It's vekatal. It's vekatal because it's got the vav at the front.
The vav.
Excellent. However, the form of the verb follows the katal pattern. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Even though it's a vekatal, it follows the katal pattern. I don't see katal here. I don't see I should have expected something like sha, ma, ru, right? Well, kind of. Shamaru is maybe the pausal form of the word, but Hebrew turns this into a shva and it becomes shamaru. And here we've got vekamu. What should it have been? Let me show you. Ka wa mu. That's fun to say. Kawamu. Sounds silly too, doesn't it? Yeah. Well,
Sounds Arabic. Sounds Arabic.
very good. Very good. Exactly. Arabic, being a more conservative language, will preserve these wows, these vavs, more than Hebrew did. But Hebrew, they thought it sounded silly, and early on, they simplified this triphthong, this triple vowel. So instead of kawamu, it becomes kamu, kamu. And that's where we get kamu from. The vav dipped out because it sounded silly. No offense to Arabic. Arabic probably thinks that Hebrew sounds silly. Okay, so the root is kuf vav mem. What is the root of kol? Only two root letters, right? Kaf.
Kaf.
Lamed.
Lamed.
Kaf, lamed.
Yeah, and the reason we know that is because when you add a suffix to it. Remember earlier on today, someone said kulchem. There's a dagesh right there. Kulchem. Why is there a dagesh there? Because there are two lameds. Kulchem. Here we get to see, albeit a vowel, but the vav did show up to the party in the yiktol form. Yakum. So here you can see the kuf vav mem, same root as this one was. All right, who is the next lucky contestant? Who wants to read next?
Me.
Go ahead, Eileen. Go ahead.
Va ahem ha nehi a
Ve'im heini.
venim heini aviha at ha
Well, there's an O there. Ota.
ota
No.
ota um
You have to shove these two together. Biom. Biom.
Beyom
Think of like the B with the
M?
Y right next to it. So it's like biom.
Beyom
Mhm.
Beyom In
Marshall.
al.
Good. This is a kamatz
Let's go.
katan.
Marshall, let's go. Come on.
This is a kamatz katan, because the stress syllable is over here, and this is a closed, unaccented syllable. It's shom-o. Shom-o.
Sham. Oh.
We'll talk about it in a bit. Go ahead and keep
Shom-o.
reading. Kol.
Kol. Neda. Ha.
Nidareha.
Nedareja. Ve. No. Ve. Eskaha.
Ve'esareha.
Ve. Esareja.
Asher.
Asher.
Asra.
Sarech. Al. Nefesh.
It is the word nefesh, but there's a suffix on it, so it turns it into nafsha. Nafsha.
Nafsha. Nafsha. Al.
Lo.
I mean, lo. Vekom.
Yakum.
Vekom.
Yakum.
Yakum.
It's Yakum.
Yakum.
Vadonai.
Va Adonai. Ve. Seleha.
Yislach.
Lesha.
Yislach. Yislach.
Yisla.
Mhm.
Leha.
Lah.
Lach.
Mhm.
Lach.
Try not to make
He.
it too scratchy, because then it starts to sound like a different letter. Say la and then breathe out. La.
La. La.
Uh-huh.
He. Le. Ha.
Hey ni. Hey ni.
Hey. Hey. Me.
Yep. Viha.
Aviha.
Mhm.
Ta.
So this right here is a repeat of what you read up here. We have, if her father doesn't allow what she has just vowed, then God will forgive her and she's not bound to it because he disallowed her. So that's why it shows up twice there and there. I'll read it through one time. Ve'im heni aviha otah biyom shom'o kol nedareha ve'esareha asher asra al nafshah lo yakum va'adonai yislach lach ki heni aviha otah. All right, we talked about quiescing aleph. Is this a quiescing aleph, an aleph that went quiet? Did everybody else go quiet?
Yeah.
Aleph at the end. Remember, aleph at the end of a
Unfortunately, you
syllable.
can't hear the cogs whirring.
Yes. it does
The cogs
yes.
are whirling, absolutely. So the aleph at the end of a syllable is the one that quiesces. So this is one. It's just that we really don't recognize it because it's at the end of the word, and we wouldn't expect anything to show up under the aleph anyway. Is this a quiescing aleph? Not a trick question. Is it an aleph at the end of a syllable?
Yes.
Yes.
It's quiescing. Very good. Is this a quiescing aleph?
No.
Has a vowel attached. It has a vowel attached to it. It can't be quiescing if it has a vowel attached to it. So neither is this one. Neither is this one. Neither is that one. If the aleph has a vowel, it's not quiescing. It's going to start with that sound. The im, ota. Ve'esareha. But if it's at the end of a syllable, shh, Aleph isn't going to say anything. So there's another one right there. Does anybody know what the slichot prayers are?
The prayers
For
of
forgiveness.
Yeah. Here's the root salach, to forgive. He shall forgive her. That is, the Lord will forgive her for not doing what she vowed because her guardian has disallowed it. But salach, to forgive, is the root of the slichot prayers. When are the slichot prayers prayed throughout the year?
Yom
No.
Kippur?
Before, leading up to Yom Kippur, because Yom
Mhm.
Kippur.
I just did it. Didn't I just do it this past?
Very good. Very good. It's before Yom Kippur. If you're Ashkenazi, you start a certain number of days before. If you're Sephardic, you start a little bit earlier. But they are the prayers that lead up to Yom Kippur. Why? Why is forgiveness so important right before Yom Kippur?
You want to make yourself right before God.
Yeah, it's essentially it. Remember that Yom Kippur is the day that historically atonement was given for the national sins. It's the sins of the nation. So building up to Yom Kippur are the slichot prayers. Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Yeah. So if you've ever heard that song before, that's one of the slichot prayers. We have sinned before you. Please have compassion on us. All right, who's the next reader? Oh, wow. It looks like something here is missing. Huh. Wonder what it is. All right, Aaron, would you like to read?
Sure.
All right.
Va'im hayo teye leish undarea al aliyah mivta svateha ish aser asra al nifsha.
Be careful.
Or
There's an
nafsha. Yeah. Nafsha. Yeah.
Excellent. Nafsha. Wait a second. How long have you been reading, Aaron?
I started in March, but
You're doing fantastic. That's amazing. Good job, man.
Well, my modern Hebrew was a lot better. Biblical
Okay.
Hebrew is a lot harder for me.
Well, it's like studying Shakespeare, right? It's going to be a lot harder than taking an AP English class.
Exactly.
I'll read through one time. Ve'im hayo tihye leish unidareha aleha o mivta sfateha asher asra al nafshah. Okay, so this is going to be another, and if da 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 da. We haven't gotten to the then yet, right? So all of this is an if statement. Does anybody know this word right here, hayo? It's not a terribly common one. Let me restate that. A lot of you should know this word because of its form, because of its pattern. What pattern is o? Think about a strong root like sha, mor.
It's
Absolute.
Mhm.
an absolute.
Mhm. It's
No,
right
it's
there.
not absolute. It's
It's absolute. It's absolute, but that's the second word. What's the first one?
Infinitive.
construct. No, wait.
So the absolute was the correct part. Infinitive is the one that was on the tip of our tongue.
Yes.
Infinitive absolute. What is the job of an infinitive? Okay, let's just take this one part at a time. What is an infinitive? let's make the question easier. What is a
It keeps
finite?
going and going and going.
Okay, it's not infinite, it's infinitive. So let's look at the converse. What is a finite verb?
It's one that's got it's got an end to it, so it's got an
It's already-
ending.
and
If you have a finite verb, it is conjugated for person, gender, number, and we know when it took place, or we know if the aspect of it, whether it's completed or incompleted. The point is we know who did it and roughly when they did it. That's a finite verb. All right, so what's an infinitive verb? The opposite. It's an action, but we don't
we're
know
not
who
we
did
don't-
it
Yes.
did
or
it,
when they
or
did it.
we're not sure when, or we're not sure where.
Very
Okay.
good. So if I said, I like to eat, I like is a finite verb. You know that I am the subject, and you know that the action is taking place more or less now. I like currently. But to eat, it doesn't tell you who the subject is. The only way you know that I'm the subject is because of what came before it. So that means anytime we get an infinitive, we need to look around to see who the subject is. Ah, it's the next word. What we're looking at is an infinitive of hey, yod, yod, with one of those yods not making it to the party. This is the verb haya. Haya means he was. Hayo means to be or being. What is tihyeh? Same root, but now there's a tav at the front. What was tav?
Verb feminine singular future.
Good. It's a yiktal. She is the subject. So having the absolute next to, we didn't talk about absolute versus construct, and really I don't want to, but I have to. We have infinitives that don't tell us who or when, but we have absolutes and we have constructs. The absolute would be shamor in a strong verb, or what would the construct form be?
Shimur.
Exactly, shmor.
More.
So long vowel kamatz drops to a shva, just like it usually does when you take an absolute and take it to the construct form. But what's the difference in function of an infinitive construct? Well,
The one that's the construct, you can add on
all kinds of things.
all kinds of things. Yes.
You can add a preposition to the front,
Preposition to
like
front, yeah,
lishmor, right?
Yeah.
You could say lishmor, bishmor, kishmor, mishmor, or you could add a suffix to the end to say
Yeah.
whose action it is. Do you guys remember earlier when we read shom? Oh, I believe it was Eileen that was reading. Remember shom? Oh, that's an infinitive construct. Surprise! It doesn't have a prefix like le, ka, ba, mi. It doesn't have a prefix, but it does have a suffix. Wait a second, Jared. These vowels look very different from these vowels. What are you saying? Can someone help explain how we got from there to here? Right? We would have expected sh, mo.
Yeah.
But when the stress moves from here to there, it causes this to drop down to a shva. Oy vey. Now we have two shvas at the beginning of a word. How does Hebrew fix this?
It
turns-
gets rid of the first one.
The second one's quiet.
It turns the first of the
first
two
one's
shvas
quiet.
into a full vowel. Not a long vowel, not a short vowel, but a full vowel, which could be long or short. Well, which one is it? Well, since we had an O vowel that went missing, it's going to influence what that first shva turns into. Kamatz katan. Voila. We took the O sound here and influenced this shva here, and we're left with shom o. The O of the infinitive construct is now essentially, in one sense or another, vicariously in front of the or underneath the sheen. It's vicariously representing the missing holam, if you will. Anyway, so infinitive absolute. What is its purpose? What does this add to our text? This hayo.
It can make it say that it's definite. So, or certain.
Certain. I like that one. It changes the certainty of it. And so we could translate this as being she will be, and that sounds ridiculous. But in Hebrew it doesn't. So how can we translate it into English and still capture what the Hebrew's trying to represent? We can add a level of certainty. We could say certainly, surely, indubitably, whatever it is, as long as you add a word that makes it more certain, that's the job of this infinitive. By repeating the verb twice, it's supposed to draw your attention to it. Hey, something important here. And if she being, that is being, leisha, I'm sorry, leish, to a husband, meaning if she is to a, it means if she has a husband. Ah. And then she vows something unto herself or uttered something out of her lips, which she bound upon herself. What's the verse going to continue to say? Well, now instead of having daddy determine whether this is a good thing or not, husband is going to say, well, God kind of put the responsibility of leadership in this household on my shoulders, so let's make sure this is good before we run with it. All right, next reader.
Can I read?
Of course, Sarah, it's all yours.
Right, okay. Shama Ishha Beyom Shamu Ve He Rish La Lo Yam Vakamu Nedareha Ve Asareha Asher Asra Al Nafsha Vai Kamu.
There are a lot of vowels shoved into here. It's yakimu.
Oh, Yakimu.
They
Right.
did something funky over here too, where the cantillation mark shoved that chirik over the hecherish, but you got that one fine. Be careful of those cantillation marks shoving the vowel over. Even this kamat's got shoved over some because of that accent, that cantillation mark. All right, very good. Vishama ishah biyom shom'o vehecherish lah vekamu nidareha ve'esareha asher asra al nafshah yakimu. Who is an Isha?
Her husband.
Oh, you didn't fall for it. That's so good. All right. Excellent. 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 Isha is a woman, but Isha is her man, her husband. Of course, the fact that husband's right there probably helped some of us, and that's okay. All right. Let's see if we can get some more verses in. Who's up next?
I'll try it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Va'im bayom shamoa isha Yano.
Yani.
Yani. Ota. Et. Nedra. Asher. Alia. Aleya.
Aleha.
Aleja. Vaet. Mavta. Safteya. Asher. Asra. Al. Nafsha. Adonai. Yislach. Yislach. Yislach la.
Excellent. V'im b'yom shmoa isha yani otah vehefer et nidrah asher aleha ve'et mivta sfateha asher asra al nafshah v'Adonai yislach lah. All right, so when it comes to reading, Aaron, just a second. When it comes to reading, I've noticed twice that you skipped a word. So, like, for example, this the hefer right here. And the reason you did is because there's this giant gap.
Right.
So the giant gap is something that I inserted to help students understand where the syntax divisions are in a verse. So whenever you see a big gap like this, it's probably because there's a pause. There's another one right here, and another right here, and another one right here. That means when you go to read, and this, of course, I'm speaking to everybody. When you go to read, look for those big gaps, and you'll know to read all of this as a single, in a single breath if you can. And then the next one in a single breath if you can. And guess what? Just by knowing where those breaks are, just by keeping an eye out for those symbols which tell you to take a pause, you're automatically going to sound more fluent. Ve'im b'yom shmoa isha yania otah. Pause. Why? Because of this. Vehefer et nidra asher aleha. Pause. Ve'et mivta sfateha. Pause. Asher asra al nafshach. Pause. V'Adonai yislach lach. Pretty cool stuff. So this is a tool that I give my students to fake it till you make it. If you can, right? I mean, why not? So the Masoretes give it to us because they want to make sure we're reading the scripture correctly, right? Depending on where you put a pause, you can significantly change the meaning of a sentence. All right, so what do we have? What is this? Shmoa. Anyone? Shmoa. Hint, we just talked about it. What if I put a L in front of it?
Oh, it's an infinitive
Construct, yeah.
construct, yes.
Right, shmoa. We know it probably better as lishmoa, to hear.
Mhm.
Here it calls it that he heard her, and I don't know that that's a good translation, but whatever, it's okay. Ooh. Does anybody know anything about this verb over here? Form, root, binyan, person, gender, anything at all. Now I like this. I picked this one on purpose because the translation is not going to help you one iota. If you didn't know any better, you wouldn't even think that's a verb. Look what they translated it as. And of none effect. It's not a verb. Yeah, it is. What is vehefer? What are some of its root letters? To cancel. Very good. All right. So how would we translate this better? To cancel is an infinitive. What is vehefer? Who's the subject? You, she, her, him?
Him,
He. Yes.
he,
Good.
third person singular.
Good. So it is third person masculine singular. He is the subject.
Mhm.
And we know that because there's no suffix. Voila. And what else can we say about this? Do we know any of the root letters? Gander a guess.
Fe and Resh.
We know that Pe and Resh are in there.
Is
Somebody said
there
something. What is it?
Nun.
Nun?
Nun.
So we've talked about Yod, Vav, and Nun being those weak letters. Nun typically leaves a strong dagesh. We don't see a strong dagesh here, but then again, there wouldn't be at the end of the word because it's a resh and it's the end of the word. Okay, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the root is pei resh resh. So this is another one of those geminate roots. What's the hey doing?
You feel?
He feel. He
Does
feel. He feel. So it's the heat. Well, I'm writing in Hebrew. Sorry about that. Hifil is the verbal pattern. So we put the pay right there. We put the resh right there. We put the resh right there. Well, not quite. These geminate roots are typically going to just combine these two together. And that's where we get the hefer. This tsere is reminiscent of the chirik yod of hifil. Cause something to parar. Has to do with shattering or canceling, of making something of none effect. What is he canceling? Et nidrah, her vow. Aleha, that is upon her, or that she is under. Do you all know the modern Hebrew word mivta or mifteh?
Is that a kitchen or
That would be mitbach.
mitbach? Oven.
Tanur is an oven.
Right. Sorry. Okay.
Mivta, they're translating here as very good. That's it. They're translating it says she uttered, and in modern Hebrew, it's someone's accent. Very good.
All right.
But here we have the uttering of her lips, and Adonai shall forgive her. Oh, look at this cute little baby verse. Who wants a little baby verse? Go ahead, Cheryl.
ונדר אלמנה וגרושה כל אשר אסרה על נפשה יקום עליה.
Perfect. ונדר אלמנה וגרושה כל אשר אסרה על נפשה יקום עליה. Who is an almana? Well, we can see it's a widow.
Yes.
Who is a grusha? What is the root of grusha?
Garash.
What is geresh?
The Lord garash Adam and Eve out of the garden to drive away.
Drive out. The root gimel reshin has to do with wide open space. So if somebody's in the way, they're getting bulldozed over. They're getting driven out.
So that's migrash like a field. Or
Yes, very good. A
field or something.
migrash is a big open place, something that's been cleared, if you will. And geresh is the intensive PL form of making something open, free, wide open, cleared. So if God is geresh, doing the action of geresh to Adam and Eve, also if a husband and wife can't work it out and the husband geresh his wife, well then she becomes gerusha.
She gets a get.
She gets a get. So the get came later on as a matter of statutory law, I guess. Oh, actually, no, we do get to see a get showing up in the Bible. That's not true. Okay. Anyway, early on, we don't get to see a get, but later on, there is a get. A get is a certificate of divorce. All right. So grusha, what is the pattern of this word? What, I don't know if I asked that in a clear way. Does it make sense what I'm asking?
Like the
Uh,
noun form?
Can you think of any other words that have this same pattern? Like berucha
Yeah.
or shmura.
Yeah.
See, all of these have the same pattern.
Yeah.
They all have the ua, ua. And then you just stick in your 3 root letters. It is not pual because then you would expect they would expect the u underneath the gimel.
And who fall?
There you would expect the u vowel before the gimel.
I'm out of answers.
Alas, this one is after the gimel. It's actually after the second root letter. All right, so let's back up just a second.
I'm out of ooze.
No, you still have one left. Okay,
Okay.
so what gender and number is grusha or shmura or brucha?
3FF.
Yeah.
FS.
3.
Doesn't have
Yeah,
3. It's just
third-
FS.
Third person singular.
No third person. So
Just-
this actually does not have person built into it. It only has gender and number, which tells us that this is an adjective, or it acts
Mhm.
like an adjective instead of a verb. Verbs have person, or supposed to.
Mm.
This one does not. Okay, so what would these be in the masculine form?
Rush.
Garush,
Rush.
Shamur, Baruch. Now what pattern is it?
No?
Somebody already guessed pu'al.
Oh.
Pa'ul.
Call.
Pa'ul. Does that make any sense? Or we can call it the katul
No.
pattern.
Yes.
Does that mean anything to anybody? What is
It's,
it?
yes,
What is
it's the
Baba?
old style, isn't it?
It's ancient.
It's old stuff. It's a passive participle.
Ah.
Ugh. The level E student is shaking her fists. I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a passive participle. What is a participle?
It's
The
something that
verbal
could be used
noun.
in noun, could be a verbal noun or a verb that's used as a noun or an adjective.
Adjective is the key word. So a participle is a verbal adjective. You describe someone as doing an action. Look at that man over there. He is running. That is an adjective describing what he's doing. No, it's a verb. No, it's an adjective. How do I know it's an adjective? Because it has gender and number. It has 4 forms. Baruch, Brucha, Bruchim, Bruchot. Just like an adjective. A passive. What does passive mean?
That
And-
it's being done to the person.
Excellent. So now it's not the one, he's not doing the action, but rather it is done to him. Who did it? I don't know, somebody. It's passive. So he turns from the subject into the object. I love my wife turns into I am loved by my wife. I love my wife is active. I am loved by my wife is a passive. All right, so katul is a pattern that is a passive participle. Barucha means that she is blessed, or was blessed, or will be blessed, depending on the context. Shmura.
So Shatul, is that like a word? Like something planted, something that was planted? Shatul, would that be a word?
Good. Shatul is the exact same thing. It's a passive participle, something that.
So that made me
is
think of
planted.
Shtula in the north. Shatula, is that how they got the name of that little town on the northern border?
That's a great
Shtula?
question. I can't confirm
Shtula?
that, but it sounds like it. As long as it's a tet right here, then I would say that's probably what happened, is that it was planted there, or maybe there were some trees that were planted there. There must be a story where something got planted. Shtula sounds like it would be a ktula pattern. Shtula would turn this into a shva and then add the hay at the end. Shtula, she is planted. And so grusha means she is
Divorced.
driven
Divorced.
out, which we're just going to call divorced. Exactly. So if there is not a husband or man in her life, then that means everything that she binds herself with is gold. She's stuck with it. She doesn't have a daddy that'll come along. She doesn't have a husband that'll come along and say, it's all right, sweetie, I got this. I'm going to go ahead and cancel it because you probably made that vow in haste. Or she's a wiser woman and doesn't need a man to tell her these things. Yeah. All right. All right. Another little itty bitty verse. Who's up next? Cheryl, that was such an itty bitty verse. Did you want to read this one too?
Unless somebody else really wants to, I will, but
We have time. Go ahead.
okay.
I think Sarah's going to read the next one.
Okay, Sarah. Okay. ואם בית אישה נדרה,
Ah,
נדרה,
there it is.
ואם בית אישה נדרה, או אסרה איסר על נפשה בשבועה.
Good.
בשבועה.
Can you explain to me why you hesitated there? Or could
I'm
you
not good with
explain to the
vowels.
class? No, that's not the reason. It's not the reason at all. It's because it's not what you.
Okay, there's that little thingy,
There's the
which I
thing.
haven't learned yet, and it
Yeah.
shoved it's right between them, and I had to figure out where it belonged.
See, what you would
This
have
is
expected is na d ra.
Nadra.
This is the normal form. Nadra. This is our third feminine singular katal form. She did something. Nadra. If he did it, it's nadar. If she did it, it's nadra. Well, that's not what's here. That thing there, the etnach, is telling us to pause here. And so we get what's called the pausal form, which shoves the stress back over to here. Nadara. What it does is it brings back an ancient vowel. Instead of having a shva here, it brings back what was originally there. Nadara. So it is weird. That's why it's it's like somebody moved the furniture just a little bit and then you stub your toe. It's like, whoa, what was that? Where did that come from? It's not what you expected. Ve'im beit isha nadara o asara isar al nafshah bishvu'ah. All right, we've needed then questions. Sounds like somebody was about to formulate a question. Sorry. All right, so now we need no, we're still continuing with the if statement. Sarah, do you want to read this?
Okay, I'll have a shot. Shama Isha
Isha.
Isha Ve He Rish Lo
La.
La Lo
La. Oh, okay, excuse me.
I-
Yep.
Ne Hene
Any.
O Ta Ve Camu
Here you have two stress symbols. Go with the first one. Vekamu.
Ve Camu Kol Nadare Ha Ve Kol Is Sa Isair
Isar. This-
Isar
So this right
Seven.
here is the cantillation mark. So instead of a chirik, it's just a confusing cantillation mark.
Okay. Isar Aser
Asher.
Asher Asra Al Nefsha Yakum.
Now, I do feel a little bit like we're repeating ourselves quite a bit. There's not a whole lot of new content in these verses because it's kind of like giving these conditions over and over again. Well, if it's like this, well, if it's like this, and if it's like this, and you're like, well, you get on with it. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. We've seen everything there too. All right, I'm just going to read it and then go on to the next verse. Ve'im hafer yafer otam isha b'yom shom'o kol motza sfateha lindareha uleisar nafshah lo yakum isha haferam vadonai yislach la. I think after this we'll get to a new content. But come on, how are we doing on time? Let's just jump forward quite a bit. Here we go. This is a new topic. All right, who's the next reader? I don't know where I jumped forward to, but I just kind of scrolled down a little bit. And Jesse, you want to read?
Okay. Vaya viu el Moshe ve'el el Azar ha Kohen ve'el Adat b'nei Yisrael et hashvi ve'et hamal malkoach ואת השלל את המחנה אל ערבות מואב אשר על ירדן ירחו.
I heard an interesting interpretation about Yarden. I always assumed that the root of Yarden was Yarad. You know, like rivers go downhill. This is the river that goes downhill as opposed to all those others that go uphill, right? Of course. And then I heard an interpretation from a colleague of mine who said the Yar in front might actually be related to Yor that we see in the story of the Exodus. In Hebrew, Hayor is the river that is the Nile. When we're talking about Egypt, the river is, of course, the main river. So the idea is that Yor becomes Yar, and then Yarden would be the river from Dan. And I thought, wow, I don't know if that's true, but it certainly sounds good. Something to think of. But I still like my explanation about rivers going downhill. But Vayaviu el Moshe ve'el Elazar haKohen ve'el Adat b'nei Yisrael et hashvi ve'et hamalkoach ve'et hashalal el hamachane el aravot Moav asher al Yarden Yerecho. What's the root of Yerecho? Jericho.
Yerach,
Yereach.
moon.
Moon. Yereach is the moon, and Yerecho appears to be his Yereach. Okay, interesting thing to name a town. I guess it's no worse than her planting, Shtula. All right. What is the root of Hashvi? It's right in front of us. It's an easy one. See, the yod.
Shinbet Yod.
The yod has graced us with its presence. It doesn't always. Or, for example, if we're talking about the verb to be captive, then we're looking at lishbot, where there's no yod. Or if he was captive, shava, then there's no yod. But in the noun shvi, we do get to see the yod, albeit it appears more like a vowel as a chirik yod, but it's there. Ooh, here's another. What is it called when the second and third root letter are the same?
Ein.
Good. I didn't call it ein here, but it is called ein. Does anyone remember the word I used? Okay, not a big deal. Ein says that the second root letter.
Geminate, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
geminate. Yeah, geminate. So you can call it whatever you want, as long as you know second and third are the same, and pretty much all verbal roots that have that phenomenon will behave similarly. Here you get to see all three root letters, not a problem. And let's see, does anyone know an English word related to this word? I say English word, but I guess it's borrowed into English.
Araba, the Araba.
Araba. Yeah, the Araba. Exactly. Like when we think of Saudi Arabia, that Araba belonging to the clan of Saud is this word right here, the Arabia. But here we're talking about the Aravot of Moav. So it's a different one, not the Saud. Okay, next reader. Christine, you still have your hand up? You want to read?
Sure.
All right, all yours.
Vayetsu Moshe ve'el azar ve'el azar
Mhm.
ha kohen ve'chol neshie netie
Mhm.
ha eda likratam el mihutz lamachane.
Very good. Vayetzu Moshe ve'elazar hakohen v'chol nesi'ei ha'eda likratam el michutz lamachane. What is the root of michutz?
It's hutz.
Chutz.
Chutz.
Chutz. So what's the me?
No. From outside or to part of outside or something or
From, exactly.
yeah.
This is min
I mean
chutz. And there's that noon at the end. If you add these two together, noon becomes at the end of the syllable and assimilates into the chet. Right? No, Jared, it's a guttural. So you get no dagesh, nevertheless, the noon has gone missing. So instead of min chutz, it becomes michutz. Michutz. From outside of. So it's like going outside of and then a little bit farther. Farther. El michutz lemachane. All right. Anyone else want to read? Or this might be the last verse. Who wants to read it? Nobody.
I'll do it.
Go ahead, Aaron. It's all yours.
Vayikatsof Moshe al Pikude
Kude.
Hechayil Sare Ha'alafim Visare Hameot Haboim
Habaim.
Mitzvah Hamilchama. Hamilchama. Or
Milchama. Very good. Excellent. Vayiktsov Moshe al Pekudei Hechayil. Sarei Ha'alafim Vesarei Hameot Habaim Mitzvah Hamilchama. Very good. And that is battle, war, milchama. Lehilachem, nilcham. So I'm noticing that some of you, when you read, your shva, your audible shva, is more like an ah sound, like pa ku de. What should it be? Make it as short as you can and make it sort of like a very short sound. So pekude. In fact, if you can shove these two together, even better. Pekude, pekude, or vsare. Now, in modern pronunciation, those vowels get lost and shoved together. But if you want to sound it out, then make it more of an sound, like pekude, hechayu,
What are the
vsare.
shvas? What are the shvas on top of like Moshe and the hundreds?
This Shva looking symbol here is called Zakef Katon, and it is an accent mark. It's a cantillation mark. And it is one that is disjuncting. So you can see I've got a space after it. So that means you want to take a short pause. This is the second most important pause over here. I would call this one maybe the third most important pause. What's the first most important? Well, end of the verse. So if you can find the end of the verse, if you can find the midway point, logical midway point, and then learn these third, then that will send you well on your way to knowing where to pause in a verse. Vayiktzov Moshe. Oh, there's a Zakef Katon. I'm going to pause. Al pkude hechayil. Oh, there's another one. I'll pause a little more. Sareh ha'alafim v'sareh ha'me'ot. There we go. Another pause. Haba'im mitzvah ha'milchama. So it's actually not a shva, and it's very deceptive that it looks like a shva, but it's still an important symbol to learn. All right. Any closing comments or questions? You guys are awesome. Please keep up your studies. If any of you wants to help support Hungry for Hebrew, here's how you can do it. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Same place, same time. Lehitraot v'shalom.
להתראות לשלום.
Thank you very much.
Shalom.
תודה.
Bavakasha. Shalom.